Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Dharna Noor. This weekend, the New York Times released records that exposed a loophole in Donald Trump's tax history. The records from 1995 showed business losses of $916 million. The tax deduction that resulted could have legally exempted Trump from paying any taxes for up to 18 years. With us to discuss this is James Henry. James is a leading economist, attorney, and investigative journalist. He's a senior advisor to the Tax Justice Network and a senior fellow at Columbia University. Thanks for joining us today.
You're quite welcome.
So, James, according to the Times, Trump took advantage of a tax provision that dates from 1918, which states that losses in one year can be carried over into later years and then deducted from one's income in the later years. Could you explain to us the logic behind this loophole and why it is that businesses are allowed to do this, but ordinary individuals are not?
Well, businesses are treated very differently, especially real estate investment companies like Trump has had, from ordinary people. And so the rest of us, if we have losses in one year, typically in our jobs, for example, or if we are in the nonprofit sector, there's no way we can take advantage of these over time. But the notion here is that since businesses are economic institutions that are long-lived and are making investments, that we try to give them some chance to depreciate the investments they have over time, and then also if they have losses to hang on to them and keep on deducting them against future income. So the special thing about real estate is that it's allowed to, as in this case, take advantage of a number of very technical provisions where Trump was allowed to have massive losses in his real estate operations and then essentially use them to shelter income from other sources of activities like licensing brands and some of his other ventures in the universities and so forth. So, he had one particular stock venture that he launched here, which generated some income for him. And that was another body of income that he sheltered. I think the big picture is here, though, is very important for us to understand. These kinds of provisions have been on the books for all wealthy investors and big real estate investors in particular, literally for decades. The real scandal here, and I know that a lot of my journalist friends are treating this as a gotcha moment. We've got these documents. Finally, we have Trump's tax returns. But these are provisions in the real estate code, tax code, and in business taxation in general that, first of all, are very, have been on the books for a very long time. Both parties have supported them. And Trump, so far, we know, has, there's not anything that's clearly illegal about this activity. The bigger scandal is in the fact that these provisions have been allowed to persist. And they're sort of like also, I think, dwarfed by the kind of tax benefits that companies like Apple and Google have been generating by offshoring a lot of their profits. The Obama administration has been in power for 8 years here. They've done nothing about this corporate offshoring to any great extent. Hillary hasn't said much about what she's going to do about it. Tim Cook of Apple is holding big fundraisers for her. And the scale of tax revenue loss to the U.S. Treasury facilitated by those multinational tax dodges is vastly greater than the amount of money that Donald Trump has evaded. So while I'm not apologizing for Trump's behavior, it's aggressive and pretty contradictory for him to be talking about trying to help other ordinary Americans while he's, many of whom have no chance but to pay the withholding taxes that are withheld against their wages. He's paying virtually nothing in taxes as far as we can tell. That's hypocritical, but it's also, I think, hypocritical for the Democrats to go to stand back with their hands on their hips, pointing the fingers at him as if some of their biggest donors are not engaged in ultimately exactly the same thing.
Now, most people actually found this news rather astounding about Donald Trump, despite the fact that, as you're saying, such tax evasion methods essentially are quite commonplace amongst the corporate sector. So how is it possible that such a provision has never gotten attention before? And has anyone ever moved to prevent such an abuse of the tax system?
Well, the real estate industry in general has one of the most influential lobbies in Washington. Uh, One of the jokes common around the tax practice community is to say we would actually do far better if we just eliminated all taxation on real estate investments and the real estate industry, because uh, after all the tax dodges they get, they actually end up getting huge subsidies from the federal government. So this is a powerful, influential industry. It's probably right up there with banking or defense in terms of their impact on tax law and the size of their lobbying in Washington. There's 1,800 tax lobbyists in Washington. Many of them are employed by real estate and finance. So there's no accident that this is a problem. What we should be doing is not necessarily just pointing the finger at Trump, but saying, Hillary, what's your plan to correct these abuses? And in fact, Trump could do us all a favor here by saying, yes, I took advantage of some of these provisions. I eliminated my taxes completely. This is outrageous. It shouldn't be available to rich people like me. We need a progressive income tax. I doubt he's going to say that, but it could be a very teachable moment if he were willing to say, we need fundamental progressive tax reform that makes the system, as William Simon once said, it would be nice to have a tax system that looked like it was designed for a purpose. And so he has an opportunity to say it's time for reform.
Now,
I don't think he's going to do that, but I think that would be an opportunity for him.
I do want to come back to what both candidates have proposed or haven't proposed to reform these sorts of tax loopholes. But I want to know first what you think can be done to close loopholes like this. What should be done? What steps can actually be taken right now?
Well, on the real estate front, a lot of these deductions that we allow to go forward for 20 years, for example, forward and 2 years backward and 20 years forward in this case, and to be able to transfer losses from one whole area of the economy, real estate, over to shelter income from completely different activities, that is unconscionable and ought to go. On the offshore front, there's lots of things we could do to clean up the offshoring of corporate income by the top multinationals in the country. The OECD is a whole elaborate project on this that we're working on for 3 years, and lots of specific proposals like country by country reporting, like ultimately a formulary kind of apportionment system for allocating taxes across countries according to real activities rather than allowing tax havens to be places where they can book income, and fundamentally getting rid of the sort of excessive tax competition that is really going on among countries, a kind of race to the bottom in the corporate sectors. So there are lots of things that we can do. The issue is politics. The issue is political will. And right now we frankly have two candidates that are both guilty of turning a blind eye to this kind of aggressive tax abuse.
Now, Trump openly admits that he's a beneficiary of tax laws that favor real estate and favor the super rich. Let's take a look at an example.
The unfairness of the tax laws is unbelievable. It's something that I've been talking about for a long time. You've heard me talking about it, despite being a very big beneficiary, I must admit. I am. I'm a big beneficiary. But you're more important than my being a beneficiary, so we're going to straighten it out and make it fair for everybody, in all fairness.
And Hillary Clinton has often attacked Trump for his plans to reduce taxes on the super rich. Here he's saying that he's going to make it fair he's going to make tax law fair for everybody. So let's compare their plans for taxes on the super rich. She plans to cap deductions and instate a new millionaire tax, and most recently she said that she'll increase the estate tax. Trump openly says he wants to reduce taxes on the super rich sometimes. He's talked about reducing individual taxes and the corporate tax rate. He wants to reduce the corporate tax rate by $2.4 trillion. He wants to abolish the estate tax. So how do the two candidates really compare? And who should folks be supporting if they do want reform?
I think that Hillary's plan is very good on the individual side. It's a good step in the right direction. She's a lot less specific about what she would do with corporate tax reform, and that's not surprising given some of her largest donors being, from Silicon Valley and the pharmaceutical industry. I'd like to hear much more about her on the corporate tax reform front. Obama had a plan proposal that would fundamentally slash U.S. corporate income taxes to 19% in exchange for getting rid of the offshoring of corporate income. I think that's going too far, but we can have a healthy debate about that. Trump goes way over in the direction of much more of a aggressive race to the bottom, and the slashing of corporate taxes to 15% basically would, I think, favor a lot of wealthy Americans and our largest companies as opposed to small business. It essentially set off or accelerate the tax competition with other countries that's already going on. I mean, Britain has just announced they're cutting their tax rate to 15% potentially next year. So this is the kind of problem we have on the international front with our largest companies that are generating most of our revenues. And we really need to get a control over that. And neither party has really addressed this problem of tax competition. So, I'm fundamentally agnostic about, from the standpoint of these candidates, their tax plans. Neither one of them has a progressive tax plan, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, thanks so much for joining us, James, and we hope to talk to you about this again soon.
Sure. Thanks very much.
And thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.